totally looking for that. And you can't find it by way of looking. It's like that sense grew into another sense, a sense of being Paul, or a sense of truly a sense of being, let's say, Rider. And then the sense of being Rider is conceptual. The mind formulates it in a mental experience. And it's like becomes like a little helmet you put on, and now that look of Rider is looking through a lens of the helmet. And it doesn't translate like it used to. That atmosphere, there's not much wonder and awe in it. You've got to do like an extreme sport to get a rush. You know, it's like you're basically numbed out. And so the more and more you have to do bigger hits and bigger things. And let's say if you seem to be in a boring life, you'll have an affair or something. There'll be a big acting out to make something juicy finally. Because everything seems to be dried out. No juice. But when you were at that point, you were the bringer of the juiciness. You weren't looking for something to bring you juice. Yeah? You would be let loose in a day, and that day would be magical. Not because the day was magical, but you and I were magical. We were in that magical state. Our head hadn't become totally infused in self-centeredness. It was open to other possibilities, and it was rampantly entertaining them. And there was no basic option that was in there that, oh, it's Paul entertaining it. Yeah? There was no narration of how it was entertained. It was just the entertaining of it. That's the verb of it, the verbing of it. And what happened, you know? Introspection, thought became dominant. And what was the most dominant thought? The idea of being a you. And all the other thoughts were about that, somehow directly or indirectly. And you just get into this maelstrom of thought, and the speed and the consistency of it makes up a sense of like a real flesh and blood thing in the middle. But it's not. It's just like whipping up something, like air, making it into cream. Seems like something appears as real to you and to me, because we're all in this little thing. And so something that was entertaining now becomes solid and real. And then all our ability to entertain is now given over to this. And this has a preformed system of thought and interpretation, and a preformed spectrum of possibilities that your incredible power to entertain is now addicted to, or has been enslaved to. So it's just entertaining the same thing over and over again, rehashing it, representing it, redressing it, changing the people. So maybe it's not Mary in the relationship that's going to save you, it's going to be Sue. But the basic formula is the same. Over and over and over again. Yeah? And there's all this sense of hope, this incessant hope that somehow something will let me feel like I used to feel. Maybe it's not said that way, but that's what you're looking for. Like in an addict, everyone seems to be hunting for that first shot they did, or that first drink. The feeling of ease and comfort they got from that drink. Every other drink is basically a seeking for that. Yeah? And every other shot is a seeking for that. And every other thought and impulse is a seeking for that. But that has been seen as something other than this. So that gets thrown outside of us, and then this, which is what needs to be questioned, not all of that, but the this, right? That all that seems to be happening too. When this is in question, and now you're seeking for that to save you, whatever that may be today, you know? I don't know what it is, but your mind will come up with something. Yeah? Maybe you have something recorded on the TV, or you've got Häagen-Dazs in the freezer for tonight, or maybe you have some porno or something somewhere, or maybe you're going to, I don't know what, surf, or something like that. The mind's always looking for this little carrot. Yeah, seeking. For what? That look, really. But that look can't be found. It's how you can see from. Yeah. But if it's seen from this, it's going to be formulated into a way of looking called self-centeredness. And there's going to be a glaze over that look, that seeing. Yeah. going to be hijacked. The seeing, instead of this way, will just go into the head and be enslaved to the mental experience of the mind interpreting your day. All the events that occur, to quote unquote you, will be represented by your head all day, and it'll be seen in different ways, all based on some premises that are so insane, like something that happened could have not happened. I could actually go in the past through thought and think, I could have not done that, and then everything would have been different. And the feeling of everything would have been different, that it would have been better. What does that produce but a mental suffering, isn't it? So the past is the past is done, but the head doesn't let it go. It's like these little embers, and it goes back there and picks them to start a fire. What if? What if I wasn't in this room and this house wouldn't have burned down and everything would be great? What if I had that couch? I would have conceived my first child on that couch. What if I would have not got hit by a car? Everything would have been totally different, meaning that it would have been great. Maybe it would have been different. Maybe I'd be a drunk in 6th Street Mission. Who knows? But the mind doesn't usually view it that way. Why? Because it makes what possibly could have happened, which could never have happened, a possibility, and then it suffers. The mind suffers, and you suffer quite a lot in mental experiences. Usually not by what's happening, because if you've been in a terrible event, you were not suffering while it was happening. You were wide awake usually. Like when something really happens in the water and you're in a dangerous situation, you're not suffering at all. You're just totally conscious of what's happening. It's after the fact, when the story is made, yeah? And then you think, well, if I wouldn't have gone in today, that wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have this blown out knee. That's the suffering. Yeah? The suffering really is that, because you entertain it could be different. The mind makes up suffering by having these options it doesn't actually have. That things could have been different. It goes into into that mental realm of if only, I should have, what if, and it just goes off. And what occurs is it starts getting agitated and disrupted and diseased. Yeah? And so what occurs? That agitation and disruption and disease seeks relief. But where does it seek relief from? From the problem. So the selfing now is going to find a solution to that agitation. It's going to bring the mind a solution to the agitation, instead of just telling the truth about it, is that it's not happening. That the reason why something happened in the past is because it did. The reason why something didn't happen in the past is because it didn't. End of story. The beautiful thing in recovery is the word abstinence, and it's the same thing with mind. You have to abstain from these false, no, you don't have to, but just see how most of the mental suffering is based on options that you think you have that you probably don't have, that things could have been different. If I would have only not said that, but you did say that. Yeah? If I was only a woman, I'd have 2 kids by now, but I'm not a woman. These things aren't options. Yeah? But the head entertains them as if they're so. So there's a sense of having free will, yeah? But not so much now. Everyone thinks they're buffeted by the situations. But in past and future, you believe you have free will. You believe I should have done something different in the past. If I wouldn't have gone to that bar, I wouldn't have got hit by the car. But now, you're thinking you're at the effect of everyone else. Oh, how's my day going to go? But in the past, total free will. I shouldn't have done that. I knew better. No, you didn't know better, obviously, at that moment. If you knew better, it wouldn't have happened. That would have been one of the ingredients of it not happening, is that you would have known better. One of the ingredients of its happening was that you didn't know better. For that to occur, there had to be an ingredient on your end that you didn't know better to get the whack. The whack happened. It didn't happen to you. You were part and parcel of that event. Yeah? So your ignorance, if it seemed to be an ingredient of that event, was demanded of the event. Whoa, but I shouldn't have been ignorant. This is total mental suffering. I can think about this 8,000 ways. Does it change it? No. All I got to do is make a call and say, oh yeah, I'll go with that to the operation. That will change it. But no, I don't want to have an operation. What does the head do? Mind accepts that fact and doesn't think about it. But I see other people, they can't accept that fact, and they think, oh, what? My life, I'd be a basketball player. No, I'd probably still be a down-and-out junkie if I didn't get hit by the car. Who knows? But it makes you, see, it has you, in the mental realm, you think you really want what you don't have. You think that's a real case. It's a mental suffering. Because usually, haven't you found out that when you have what you want, you don't really want it that much? But when you don't have it, it seems like you really want it a lot? Yeah? Haven't you noticed it in you? You're suffering, a mental suffering, because nothing's actually happening to you right at that moment. Obviously, no one's sticking needles underneath your fingernails. But you're suffering greatly the missing of something that you really want. Now let's say, I had a perfect example of it with a guy in Australia. I was there many times in where he lived, and I saw his relationship displayed with his girlfriend. And it was basically, at best, benign neglect. You know, he didn't really put much attention on it. And then the woman got to the point and left. As soon as she left, he called me up and said, the source of all my happiness has left my life. I said, but how were you responding when the source of all your happiness was in your life? As if it wasn't the source of all your happiness. But now the mind, now it sees this opportunity. Oh, it's gone now. Oh, I really, 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 really want that. You believe it, that false evidence, it's false evidence because if you wanted it, you would have entertained it while you had it. It's a story. But when you buy that, what does it do? It's excruciating. The mind suffers a rich, juicy suffering. Can you imagine having a mental experience of not being able to have what is the source of all your happiness? I mean, the mind can riff on that pretty damn good, man. You can be really, really suffering. And then bring free will in there. What did I do to lose it? You didn't want it. What? That's the last place you go to. What did you lose to lose it? She came to her senses and left. What did I do? Do. And then free will becomes dominant. Oh, yes, I had all these options. You have no option whatsoever. What came to pass, came to pass. It's over. This idea, the mind sets up these possibilities or assumptions or talents it thinks it has, and it gets into a lot of mental anxiety and suffering from it. Question those possibilities. They're not possible. You cannot go back and change what happened. No matter how much you massage it, think and think and think. Because how else can you go back there? You can feel it. What brings you back? The feelings of that is thought goes back. And then it brings back the feelings that it has accompanied that memory. Yeah? Oh, I'm really feeling 2 years ago. No, you're freaking not. You're feeling a mental experience now. You're not feeling 2 years ago. There is no 2 years ago. It's in the realm of mind. There is no past. Literally. Where is it? Bring it here. Where the freak is it? There is no future. There is no airport you can land in the future. There's no 5-star hotel you can make a reservation. There's no white sandy beach. There's nothing. It's a mental realm. Past is a mental realm being entertained now. It cannot be entertained in the past nor in the future. All the thinking about the future is happening now. All the thinking about a past, all of it, and all the feelings about a past are happening now. You become enslaved to this realm because you're identified with its primary center, being a self. You become a citizen of a mental realm. Time becomes more important than now. Yes? thoughts are much more important than anything else. You rely on them totally. They represent the day to you. They interpret the day for you, so you can be safe and secure in your little bubble of unconsciousness. Oh, don't worry, I'll tell you what's happening. Don't use that power. That's way too much. Chill that down. All right. This is how it's going to go today. I got a whole schedule for you. And so, let's say you think shopping signifies having a good time. You may not be having a good time at all, but in the mental realm, it just checks that list. I had a good time today. Did you? Oh, well, this means I'm really doing great. So if that happened, hey, I'm doing great today. Are you? So this head presents the day, presents your list, and it says what's good and what's bad, and whatever activities that you seem to be entertaining, which you're not, this is an interpretation, yeah, it marks, and then it gives you a passing grade or a failing grade. And if it's a failing grade, it goes back and tries to represent it thousands of ways to see what you did or they did or whatever. All emphasizing what? A mental realm. A special somewhere in the midst of everywhere. Kids are acknowledging the everywhere before they grow into this special somewhere. We have seemingly grown into a special somewhere, and we can acknowledge everywhere, because we are in a gated community of a special somewhere. We have to keep reinforcing it and re-emphasizing it all day, because everywhere seems to leak in to that special somewhere. Almost like an intruder. It's constantly breaking through this little story. So the head is busily representing and interpreting. And why? That's why. How many things do you need to apply thought to today? And yet how much thoughts are occurring? I mean, how many things I had to go, all right, I got to put this wire in that hole and turn the switch on. That would be applying thought. What's most of the thoughts are about? Some teachers say they're psychological. Let's just say they're about you. Yeah? They're about a life pertaining to you. They're about a life seen from you. They're about you all day, indirectly or directly. And that you is what you're not. What they're about is they're thinking about a thought. They're not thinking about you, and you're not the thinker of them. If you were the thinker of them, then stop thinking them. If you're the one who turned on the spigot, you could turn it off, I'd imagine. If you're the thinker, stop thinking. If someone says, hey, I'm just bringing it up to you, you've been doing something at the house, you're not washing the dishes, then you'd start washing the dishes maybe. You have the ability, right? Someone points out to you, hey, or you've been doing something, hey, maybe you should stop that. Okay, then you stop it. Why can't you stop your thoughts if you're the thinker? You're taking possession and ownership of everything else. You think you're the big doer in your life. Then what's the biggest doing going on all day? Thinking, I'd say. More than anything else. I think maybe even more than breathing. I think you have more thoughts than breaths during the day. Yeah? The breaths seem to be involuntary. Are you breathing? Are you digesting the food? Why is it then that you think you're the thinker? Why? Because you think. And you don't think. You see? There's a thought that you're the thinker. You don't see it as a thought. The thought takes a possession of being you, and now that thought thinks it has all the other thoughts. So now the one thought becomes the thinker of all other thoughts. But how could a thought stop thought? Just like it says, how can self get out of self? How can thought stop thought? How can a thought stop thinking? All right, well, I can't stop it, so now I'm going to have positive thoughts instead of negative thoughts. Have you seen that work out well for you? Have you really? I'm just going to fill my head up all day with positive thoughts. Have you? But there's an assumption that somehow you're the proprietor, or you're the doer, or you're the haver, or somehow you have an ownership of those thoughts. Why are they so unruly? They're unruly. They're mine. Why don't they take a lesson from me and more reflect what I'm really like? Why are they so stubbornly independent? Why are they so crazy when I'm not? I'm a very sincere, loving person. Why do I want to kill somebody in my thoughts all day? All reaction to the thought is a thought. You saying, why am I having all these bad thoughts? That's a thought. You cannot escape the thought system as a thought. It's impossible. What it does is, it tries to present that it's never actually been in the thought system by claiming it. I'm the thinker of it. So if I'm the thinker of it, I cannot possibly be a thought. I must be the thinker of it. That makes me different than this process. You see? That's the way it tries to get out of it. But it doesn't get out of it, does it? Because it has no control over that. As being a proprietor, it's not a really good proprietor. No one does what it wants it to do. Yeah? It doesn't hurt it well. It doesn't direct it well. It's just basically like trying to hurt a bunch of cats, like they say. Obviously, you're a cat. You're a cat trying to hurt the other cats. It's impossible. Self can't get out of self. Why is that? Why? Because self is an idea of a mental process produced by a verb, verbing. The mental process is verbing, and it's feeling and seeing and thinking, perceiving and thinking as if it's a self. So that assumption becomes what we're identified as, yes? So I start believing I'm that. So here's this assumption going on and on and on and on. And it says self can't get out of self. Why is that? Because self is a product of a mental process. Yeah? How could a mental process leave, a product of the mental process, leave the mental process? So this is the mental process, let's say. What you're calling you is believed to be outside of the mental process. You believe you're thinking the thoughts, or having the thoughts, or they're about you, yes? This is not true. This is part of the mental process. So you, as a thought, cannot leave the mental process. Because there's no existence of it when it leaves. There's no possibility of leaving what produced it. Because when it leaves what produced it, it's unproduced. So here we are, here's this, and we're believing we're this. We're actually the awareness of this. Yeah? Mind is tracked by being identified as this mental process. Yeah? So mind isn't acknowledging all there is this. It's acknowledging only that. Yeah? So its ability to entertain its true face, space and awareness, it's busily been turned, and it's not actually turned, it's just a picture. It's now entertaining this as being itself. And it gives meaning to things, and is given this idea the biggest meaning of all, that is me. Now the mind, which has an ability to entertain, like in recovery they say, when you're freed from this little dilemma of obsession with self, you'll know peace and comprehend the word serenity. That's looking this way, or from this. Peace and serenity are easily known and comprehended because you are that, yeah? But when this mind is reflecting selfing and caught in that reflection as being itself, it's sort of like Narcissus, right? He looks in the pond and gets absorbed in that, thinking that reflection is him, yes? So the mind is like looking over at this mental process, not conditioned mind, but seeing the mental process, and the selfing is happening, and the selfing makes up a sense of a noun, and it falls into that trap. So the mind becomes identified with this thought, this idea, yeah? The oldest idea, and it loses its ability to entertain freely now. It can only entertain as that, as a sense of being this, which severely limits what it can entertain. Yeah? So now this ability to entertain, which is, it can entertain its nature as awareness, it's now entertaining its nature as this. Now the only way it can entertain awareness is as something that I could achieve as this. And then, so now the access to awareness is based on what I as this can do or not do. So what I truly am now becomes something that this can achieve or not achieve. Yeah? So now, this thing that's entertaining is a possibility that I can truly be unconscious as this. And I can be conscious as this. which is saying that I am not all there is consciousness. Yeah? That's a huge difference. When all there is consciousness, that's the possibility. When you're identified as this process of selfing, you entertain consciousness as something that you can be conscious of or unconscious of. So you play God, really. Yeah? That idea of you starts playing God with what you would call God. It now says, no, God isn't everywhere. God is everywhere, but I'm the one who has to find him. That must mean it's not everywhere. Or it means that you believe you're in a special somewhere that excludes everywhere. And until you come out of your gated community, you won't know everywhere. But you don't understand, the gated community is mobile. Wherever you go as a self, you take your special somewhere with you. And that's why everywhere you end up, you don't sense everywhere because you think it's a special somewhere. So now, where you travel and everywhere, you never get the sense of everywhere. All you get is the sense of everywhere being absent because of your special somewhere. Yeah. Let me get to this square of everywhere. This is the center of everywhere. You get there, and it's just everywhere seems not to be there. All right, let me go to this. Let me practice this practice. All right, now I'm in the Kabbalah everywhere or something, or the Zen everywhere. But it still seems like a special somewhere. Maybe you have what you call experiences of everywhere, but that's not everywhere. Everywhere is not an experience. You'd have to be somewhere to have an experience of everywhere. Everywhere is much bigger than an experience. It's much bigger than a state. It's what's always so. That's why it's not being noticed. The mind can't notice what's always so, obviously. Can you notice that you're feeling the effects of gravity right now? No way. No freaking way have I ever heard someone complain about the effects of gravity at any cafe I've ever been to. Oh, gravity's been really heavy on my shoulder today. Of course not, because you're always under it as a body, so you don't know it. But if you went in an anti-gravity place, then you know gravity by its absence, yes? In a sense, this way, you know the presence by your absence. Or as St. Francis says, it's in self-forgetting that you're reborn. So the mind is remembering, rethinking, refeeling its presence as this. That activity of verbing, of selfing, is the active denial of the presence. So your presence as this, thinking about you and being the thinker and the feeler and this is you, is the active denial of the presence. It's, you know it by your absence. Or like it says, in self-forgetting, then you know it. Yeah. So when I recognize, when there's a recognition, I'm not this, that's that. There's nothing more that needs to be done. There's just a recognition that what was so seemingly present, obviously, what all the thoughts are about. Do you actually believe that they're about an absence? They are, actually. They're about you, which is an absence. But the activity just implies to you, to the head that's captured in that process, that I must be fucking present if I have 70,000 thoughts a day. If I'm having all these feelings, if it feels like it's so real that I'm this must mean I'm really this. What it actually means is this is the absence. You are totally absent. What's reflecting in all that activity is your basic absence. Because the greatest activity you don't feel at all, which is everywhere at all times, do you? How are we not bumping into everywhere if we're in everywhere? If you're rubbing up against it all day, would you know you ever rubbed up against it? No, you wouldn't. You need an experience to know something here. The mental process, the selfing, needs an experience for it to think it knows something. This is not an experience. This is a prior knowing to this system's knowing. You don't experience the truth. You are that truth. You don't experience the truth. For you to experience the truth, it would have to be something other than you, and that's not the truth. So, What do you feel that is implied when he says self-forgetting? What does that imply to you? To me, it's a verb, right? It doesn't say self-forgotten. It says self-forgetting. It's an activity. Yeah? There's an activity of self-forgetfulness. That's traveling lighter. That's the activity of it. Just like there's a verb of selfing, there's a verb of self-forgetting. Yeah? That self-forgetting isn't producing a noun of us as a self. Yeah? The emphasis isn't on the mental realm. The emphasis is not on time, past or future. It's on now. Not even now is a bookended with an idea of time, but let's just say this, yeah? It has a clear recognition of what's not happening. It doesn't have to take a class of how to recognize what's not happening. It's an immediate recognition. It's not happening. Why? Because it's in recognition of what's happening. This is the immunity to what's not happening. Being anchored in what's happening, you have an immunity to what's not happening. As soon as it appears in the mental realm, you recognize it. Yeah? Because how? It's not happening in any other realm. I'm not feeling it. I'm feeling thoughts about it. I'm not seeing it. I'm not tasting it. I'm not touching it. I'm not hearing it. Yeah? All there is thought about it. And then feelings getting conjured up. And the thoughts have the sound of your voice. And it's not your voice, it's just a voice out of his body. But because there's an identification as the body, you assume it's your voice. So that thoughts have more of an attraction because it's about you. If you had some of the thoughts in your head and they had Mother Teresa's voiceover, it would be fucking incredible. You would just have total immunity to them. You just easily that. But because they sound like you, you're just entranced. Oh, yes. Thank you for this great take on the day. It's going to suck. I think I've got the same weather report 8,000 times in my life. But put on the raincoat. It's going to suck. Hunker down. Get the Agendas for later. Get the video. Because I know the day's going to suck. So let me have some security. So I'll feel better when I'm alone in my own little house. This is selfing up the wazoo. Pure mental experience. Yeah. You're having tons of experiences. Unfortunately, most of them are mental. You're constantly skiing the slopes of what never happened. You're constantly getting wiped out of what may happen. Yeah? You're constantly getting buffeted by these terrible storms in a future Friday. Jesus Christ. You're so beat up, and yet you've been living a high life in Marin County. It's mind-boggling. You look worse than someone on 6th and Market. You have a nicer suit. Your shoes are better. You got some keen sandals. But your mind is having an experience someone may not be having it on 6th and Market. They may be much freer today than you are. Yeah? Their mental experience may be, hey, I scored. I got a tall, 16-ounce tall. Hallelujah. I didn't get that house that time. I should have bought that house. That mental experience is better than theirs. Give me the 16-ounce. At least after you drank, you're done. Not having a house will go on forever. I should never have stayed with her, but you did. I should never. Jesus Christ. You never even lived it, yet you relive it thousands of times in the head. This is a realm where there's a lot on offer. And the mind offers you one realm, which is the mental experience. Yeah? The offering is this idea of a self. When you get absorbed in that, you get addicted to that realm. And it overrides the other realms here. You don't sense the spiritual, you don't sense the energetic, you don't sense the physical much, all you sense is mental. Blah, 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 yeah? Obviously, you can see you're a devotee of that realm because time is more important to you. What happens later is more important than how you're feeling now, and what happened in the past is way more important than what's happening now. I'm not saying do anything with any of that. See, you're not the center of it. If you're not the center of that system, you'll lose interest in it. When you lose interest in it, where will your interest go? I guess into what's happening. Where else is it going to go? Literally. Where else is your interest and attention going to go? If it's removed from the mental realm of past and future, where else can it go? Into the only thing that's happening. So you'll get interested in life now instead of in your life there and then. And maybe just being here may be more than enough for you. And you'll tell because you'll probably chill out. A lot of these drives and seeking and the exquisite suffering of not having what you want may be seen to be like a bogus little thing. And you'll be free. One of the biggest things happened to me is in a bathtub and I realized I didn't want what I wanted. It was an incredible moment. That whole thing of the carrot in front of the horse was just blown out of the water. And I realized all my attention was freed from that goal, whatever it was. I don't have what I want. But when I had it, I didn't want it. But I still don't have what I want. When that carrot was cut, where did my attention and interest go? Right where I was. It brought my life what was sorely lacking, the attention and interest in it. It was released from the mental realm and it landed back here. Yeah? And then what was of underlying unsatisfaction became okay. I wasn't unsatisfied anymore because most of my unsatisfaction was based on I didn't have what I wanted. And when I realized I didn't want it in the first place, there it went. The carrot wasn't so juicy. Yeah? What happens when what happens when the donkey or the horse doesn't see the carrot? Is it a horse, really? Is it the moving towards the carrot all day that defines the horse? What happens when that stops? The horse gets redefined. Maybe you're not what you think you are. Yeah? Maybe that horse goes through an incredible transformation. Once the carrot gets cut, what's the horse going to do? Maybe it's going to run around. Yeah? Maybe it'll ride. Whatever. Being enslaved. That yoke will be off it. Who knows? But just here in this mental realm, what's one of the hardest topics we talk about? Acceptance, yeah? Acceptance is impossible in the mental realm. It's impossible in the mental realm because the whole basis of the mental realm is that you could have done something different or things could be different. It's the biggest assumption. It's what gives you relevance. You believe that things can be different than they are. Acceptance is accepting everything as it is. But your primary assumption in the mental realm in selfing is that things could be different if I only would have done something else. Yeah? The primary assumption. So that primary assumption is in total conflict with the level of acceptance, which is changing nothing. Everything is just fine as it is. Yeah? Why is it that it's a topic at thousands of recovery meetings? Because in the mental realm, it's an impossibility to live in acceptance. Because all your mental realming, all your experience would be neutered. You wouldn't have a mental experience if you didn't think you could change things. Every time your head would go back into the past, assuming it could change it by thinking about it, that whole journey would be cut off at the tracks. You'd be right here again. Yeah? You would have abstinence to all those false assumptions and possibilities your mind's entertaining. That I can think myself out of something, that I'll get to the root of something if I think about it, that, oh, if I wouldn't have done that, this wouldn't have happened, and if she would have stayed, I would have been this, and all these assumptions, yes? All of this sense of being the doer and haver, if that was taken out of the equation, what would occur? An overriding freaking peace, which would be, and a byproduct of that would be acceptance. You finally would accept things as they are, and then you would see yourself, or see from as you are. When you're not accepting things as they are, you're seeing from a point of what you're not. Yeah? When you actually see everything as it is, you're seeing from what you are. Just that space. Yeah? Position of neutrality. No thought or effort on your part. No. Just a clearness to it. No new pair of glasses, no needing Just no needing corrective lenses, no trying to get an advantage, just taking off the glasses and seeing again. And you see in a level of acceptance. You don't give a damn if everything changes or not. You do not go into the mental realm through thought into the past. And if I wouldn't have gotten hit by the car, and it's all bye-bye, because there was never a hallway. It doesn't exist. It's a mental realm presented now by your head. And you can only travel there as a mental product. You cannot travel there. Your body can't go. No matter how much you think about the past, does your body land there? No. If you had a camera here, you'd be on the tape. Your body's been here this whole meeting. So the only place that goes into the past and future is your mind, and it goes there now. There's no past and future. It's just a mental realm. Absorbed up here. This moment, this eternal moment becomes partitioned. Now, past and future. And the mind lives there. Yes? And it entertains the past, and entertains the future, and it entertains now the past and the future. Because that's the only time it can be entertained. And it dwells up here, and you're shriveling on the freaking vine. The body and everything else. It's like, you ever see those dogs when they have a bad problem, they got some mange, so they put those cones on them. In the sack, we're all walking around with like these cones. I'm just in this mental realm all day. When you were a kid, did you have a concept of time yet? So when you were playing, was your mind entertaining that you could be doing anything other than that? No. Wasn't that a joy? Wasn't that a joy that there was no option other than what was happening? What happened? Because in fact that hasn't changed. There's no option. This is the only thing that's happening. What happened? We seem to have been entertaining it unbelievably when we were kids. What happened? We started entertaining this. And this brought options where there are no options. And the mind says, screw this, I want to go with the options. So you go into the world of options. It shouldn't be this way. I could have, hey, that kid has a pair of sunglasses. Hey, Mom, I want a pair of sunglasses. I want to go to Gap. And all this stuff, And then you start entertaining possibilities that take you out of what? It can take you out of here, but seemingly so, you travel in the mental realm. And you don't realize you open yourself to a huge amount of suffering, because in the mental realm, anything can happen. Yeah? And your tendency, the way you think, isn't that you think and all great things are going to happen all the time. I would say your head tends to minimize when it's good and maximize when it's bad. So if it has that tendency and it gets into a mental realm where there's all this time, both past and future, it can minimize the good and maximize the bad. And so the bad can seem like it will last forever, and the good will seem like it's not going to last enough. You've been living in that realm, haven't you? Seemingly. Your mind has become identified with that realm. You can't seem to get out of it because the realm's tricky. Because once you get in, when the door closes, any activity of trying to get out is another way of being in it. Yeah? Because you become identified as the self, the idea of being a self, which is a product of that mental realm. And every time you try to get out of the mental realm as a self, that's the mental realm. That's why it says self can't get out of self. There's tons of escape and exit doors, isn't there? And you're thinking, oh, okay, I got it finally, I'm out of this. And you open up, oh, I'm out of it. No, that's in it. You cannot get out of self as self. You cannot get out of a mental realm as a product of the mental realm. You are not that. That's the solution. The best way to be out of a problem is realize you were never in it. You have never become a mental thing. This is like the mind sees this life, and there's a game board, and you're the boot, let's say, Monopoly. Yeah? Or you're the whatever, the Eiffel Tower, the other ones, yeah? So here you are, this body. Then, this game, this is seen, and then a projection of this game in a mental realm is seen. So past moves on the Monopoly board and future moves on the Monopoly board become dominant. And then you go over and worry about all your past moves. Oh, I wouldn't have been in Baltic Place if I wouldn't have done... And then you worry about, how am I going to get the boardwalk? Am I going to beat them? The boardwalk. And yet you're on one square on the board game. Yeah? You're here. You're waiting for your chance to roll. You haven't even rolled yet, but your head is... I got to get a 6. Because the mind has taken this and made it into this. So we're in this little game of life. We're going where we go. We do what we do. But the head doesn't like that idea. It says, let's play it that you have huge options. You can even think that things were different. You can even deny that you're at Baltic Place. You can say you actually threw a 5 when you threw a 2. Or, I'm going to win this game. Crush everyone on the board. Wait till I get boardwalk. When I can rent these houses, I'm going to kill that mother. All this, yeah? All this. But the game is happening right now. Saturday. We're here in Marin City. Yeah. Here. Oh, I've been to these Saturdays before. What's it? No. Saturday, Marin City. This is the game. You're a boot. Obviously you're not. That's the good news. Really be in the boot, totally into the boot, and you'll realize you're not a boot. When you want not to be a boot, that's being a boot. Seriously. When you accept being a boot totally, you're not the boot. But when you're fighting it, oh, I'd rather be a better boot, that's being a boot. So here, what's happening? I'm going to make some moves, maybe I'll end up here today. Yeah? In the mind, it's made 70,000 moves. It's creating excruciating mental suffering. Yeah? Today you may not have almost any physical suffering, but the mental suffering you may go through today is unbearable. Physical suffering, probably not much unless you get hurt or something. But most of the day you probably go pretty well. But mentally you can be in hell. What causes us to go there and take a citizenship of it? We're identified with what is offered us as us, a mental idea of being a self. Identified with the boot, but leaving the boot totally and going into this realm, where it has a concept of being the boot, but it lives in a mental realm. I'm saying, see that? If I'm not that, it gives you immunity to all of that mental realm. Yeah? You realize you don't get out of self by self. You realize you're not a self. That's getting out of it. It doesn't take any time because nothing ever happened. In the pause is timeless. You have never been a self, so there's not going to take any time to get out of one. It's just a recognition. And then it's hopefully, if the recognition is entertained, it will translate sooner or later in the game board. You'll travel lighter over this Monopoly game called your life. You may not get to boardwalk every time, but you'll travel lighter through the game. Yeah, so whatever happens, I travel lighter through it than I used to. There you go. You've left the mental board game, and now you're more so in what's actually happening. And you'll see that it's a lot different than you thought up here. Everything is a lot different than you think. As soon as you start applying thought to it, it changes it, yeah? So life, what we're calling life, has mostly been a mental experience since we've left 4 or 5 years old. Yeah, we haven't been experiencing life at all. We've been experiencing the mental realm of life. Yeah, life chock full of past and future, chock full of assumed options that we don't have, chock full of either determinism or self-free will. They're both the same. It's all duality. So there's determinism and free will. Yeah? But where do you exert most of your free will? In the mental realm. You think, oh, I'm going to do something different later, or I should have done something different in the past. But in the moment, you stop, you don't exert your free will and do the next right thing. The mind loves to trumpet. It has free will, but it usually just trumpets it in time. In the moment, it's like always, oh, I can't help myself. I couldn't help myself doing what I did today. But then you think you could have helped yourself doing what you thought you did later, in the past or in the future, yeah? Watch it, see it. It totally disdains free will now, but in time it defends it. Oh, yes. What allows you to go into what if, or what I should have? Free will. You think it could have been different if you would have done something differently. Yeah. But you're not even controlling your breath or anything. So, that's what I'm aspiring to, that little look, see? They can come up and ask you what they want. And how many, but when you want to ask someone what you know, what you want from them, how many thoughts do you have about it? Can you just go up, hey, can you, how much do you think about it? I gotta cover all my bets. In what realm? That realm. What could possibly happen if I say this? What could have happened if I said this? It's unbelievable. So you pull that head out of yourself's ass. See what happens. I can outdo you, brother. Any questions? Yes.
Michael Wynn wanted me to ask one. You talked about the independent, long-lasting, separate entity.
Yes.
He questions why you put long-lasting in there. What do you mean by that?
Well, because it's appearing in time, so the best it can hope for in time is to be long-lasting. And basically why I say it that way is just that I read it out of an old Buddhist text a long time ago, and that's how it was worded, and I like what they said. I thought it was the best succinct statement of what I'm trying to get at, the sense of being a long-lasting, independent, separate entity.
I thought it was about identifying with the body, and we want the body to go on being for a long time.
Well, that's going to be part of it, but a lot of the head actually thinks it's going to leave the body, but be intact. Yeah.
But be intact.
Oh yeah, it thinks it's going on after this. Its assumption is that it's going to keep on going. It knows it's not true, but it's another assumption it has. Obviously, don't you live as if you think that? If you really felt like you were going to die, maybe you'd have more of a passion to, embrace what's happening. But a lot of us stay in like a sense of withholding, waiting for that special something. Yeah? So day in and day out goes by and it doesn't, no, that's not what I wanted. No, I'm not opening up to that. As if you have plenty of time, yeah? As if you can be sitting there going, I don't know about that. I don't think so. Not today. Maybe next weekend I'll come here and really listen. I don't know. So it seems like it has a lot of time. But there's such a fear underneath it because it knows it doesn't exist. If it really had its immediacy at stake, it would probably be responding. Actually, you can see that really underlying it's seeking ravenously for relevance. Yeah, the selfing. It's seeking. It's an amazing thing because it's trying to make it imprint, yet no imprint is left. So it's constantly trying to give a lot of meaning to things in itself, to leave an imprint, to seem like it's real, like to have a real effect on something. And yet the overriding everywhere is just erase it every day.
The apogee of which is immortality.
What? Yeah. It thinks it's got it. Well, one of the things it entertains is that it's going to be in another body. That James is going to leave this body, and there'll be another James that really knows itself as James, but it'll be in a body maybe called Steve. No. I think you're going to be rudely awakened on that. So, if you think you have free will, exert it, man. If you think you know what you could do to make your life rich, go ahead and do it.
Some people seem to be very intensely, they've decided that there's reincarnation. How did they get this idea?
I would say from mine, but
From the mind.
yeah, where else are you going to get it? Not from your foot. You the foot is an entertaining reincarnation, I'll tell you that. Maybe an entertaining another pair of shoes, but not really. Maybe there is, but does it matter? Does it matter? Again, I would think that selfing in a way, that's lovely, because it thinks it has a lot of time. So it doesn't matter if I putz around all day now. I still have another life to go.
What are ghosts? What's that all about?
What's that all about? Anything can happen here. In the mind, anything can appear. Anything it can entertain, so it probably entertains ghosts.
Is that their long-lasting, separate, independent reality that's just out of the body for a moment? We can experience it?
There's no that. It isn't theirs. Whatever appears here isn't yours. It's not your ghost or this or that. There's no your here. There's no yours. There's no possessiveness here. It's just verbing, yeah?
Okay.
What the mind does with it to make it seem like it has something to do with you is the mental process. But really, this place has no you in it. It's just happening. It's consciousness happening. Yeah. Something is taking on an appearance and something is seeing that appearance, yeah? Isn't it the case? It seems to be, something seems to have taken on an appearance here. And something seems to be seeing the appearance. Now, if you follow the thread of duality, if something is seemingly appearing, then it must be coming from nothing. So, in duality, there must be presence and absence. I was just reading this book on chaos theory. So, chaos and orderliness, yeah? So, chaos and orderliness is duality. Yeah? So, there's like chaos and then there's like orderliness. Yeah? There's yin and yang. There's absence and presence. There's self and non-self. There's form and formlessness. There's material and spiritual. All of these are in the mental realm. In this experience, this is the construct of the dream. It's dualistic. Yeah? So in a sense, the truth isn't that there's the presence is the absence. It's actually the absence of both that is the real presence. Yeah. But that's getting out there. So we're trying to take it to one end of the duality so that both of them will negate each other. So right now we're overly thinking we're present, which is causing the absent to seem to be really absent. But the absence is the presence, really. It's the nothingness that's the something here, really. Yeah? The something is the appearance. The real meat of what's appearing is non-appearing. Just like they're finding in the universe's schematic, there's more antimatter than matter, so to speak. So there's more antimatter, or the absence of matter as a force, than there is what's appearing. So in the same way, there's nothing and everything. There's absence and presence. What they're saying, in some views, it's the absence of both of those. The absence of both the polarities of presence and absence is that, or thusness, or what cannot be spoken about, nor can be indicated. That's that. But here, most of us are taking this to be so present, we want to entertain its absence, which will provide something. The mind will, by going like this, it's gone this way. This is so present, it's absent, and then it goes into that position of neutrality. Yeah. Between the poles. Yeah. To me, that's serenity and peace. See, if you emphasize the absence, that would be stating you're still semblance of being present. Yeah? So it's not that. It's not you're absent, nor are you present. You're neither. But that gets a little too much. Right now, it's just good to see what is it that thinks it's so present. And because you're present as this world is as real. So the world is as real as you are. Yeah? So if this is real, then the world's real. Just like my Uncle Fred was the body because I thought I was the body. When I saw Uncle Fred wasn't the body, what happened is it rubbed against my belief I was the body. And it was like a certain awakening. Because I realized, wow, the reason why I saw Uncle Fred as a body because I was seeing myself as a body. So I thought the body was what was awake. And therefore, Uncle Fred as the body was what was awake. When the awakeness left the body, it was obviously that wasn't Uncle Fred. There was a mistake of perception. Yeah. That's what's happening now. You're perceiving things as if they're real, but they're truly unreal. And what's unreal is really what's real. but you can't perceive it. You can't taste it, touch it, smell it, think it, so therefore you don't think it's real. Well, the mother of everything is nothing. So when you're absent, when there's the verb of self-forgetting, you sense the presence. Yeah. The presence is actually your absence. Yeah. See that? The presence is actually the act of you being absent is the presence. The act of you thinking you're present blinds you to that presence, so you think it's absent. And if you think it's absent and you have a desire to seek it, you'll become a seeker for that absence. But will continually stay absent to you as long as you're taking yourself to be present. That's why you can't find the truth. Because when you seem to be real, that becomes the truth, and truth becomes not true. So how can you see the truth in what's not true? You have to realize, hey, this isn't true, then the truth's obvious. So the absence of this is the active presence. The mind, when it realizes I'm not this, becomes aware of the presence. When it's aware of this, that sense of presence is absent to it. And so what does it do? It starts looking for it. What else would it do? When it believes something is absent, then and it let's say has there's something I'm missing, it starts doing what? Looking for it. But if it's looking for it from the point of view of being a self, that's what keeps you blind to it. That's why they say it's an open secret. Or it's a gateless gate. There's nowhere to go. There's no center of everywhere. Every point of everywhere is the center. You are at the beginning and the end of any destiny and journey you are going to take. It's right now. It takes it totally out of time, which drops it out of the mental realm. A true solution has no time in it, because a solution with time is from the mental realm. Yes? And that's inherently a problem. A solution in time is from the mental realm, and that makes it inherently a problem. A true solution is timeless. That's why we talk about a pause. A pause is like a timeless moment. In that timeless moment, your whole life can change. And like what you would see as 3 seconds of time, an eternity of information can be downloaded. You can totally change everything. It can change like that. Why is that? Because it's not from time. It doesn't take a process for it to complete itself. It's a solution. It's like the acorn and the oak are the same. The acorn has the whole oak in it. Yeah? So the mind gets it. And it takes absolutely no time to get it because it already had it. And now maybe it'll take time to sort of manifest here, but that's the fun of the place. Yeah? If something appears here, it has to take time. Yeah? So let's say there's an awakening entertained, and so let's say it doesn't totally wash you out in a nanosecond, then it's going to seem to take time to deepen here. That's what the Course in Miracles says, you're dreaming yourself out of this dream, and the dream's going to get happier. That's what occurs. So the mind's going, okay, let's have this awakening appear in time. How is it going to appear in time? Like it deepens. Like you get it more. Like there's revelations along the way. Well, it seems like the lens opens up more. Did it? No, but that's how it will seem here because it's being translated in time. So it's appearing like, oh, this lady's getting it. She's much clearer than she once was. Whatever. Of course that's not happening, really, but in time it is, in the appearance. So the dream gets happier, and you dream yourself out of this place. I have to admit, that's the experience that I have, in a sense, as this action figure. Something's dreaming itself out of this, and this action figure is less and less pertinent, and yet more and more free. By the less and less pertinence it has, the more and more freedom it seems to be able to exhibit. It knows when it's tired and it's okay to sleep. It knows when it does this and wants that, and like this. It's all freed up. Yet there's less importance to it. What the hell happened? has much more knowledge than it ever had when I was trying to think things through. As the mental process. Seriously. Once this was dropped, this thing has a lot of innate knowledge. It knows what it likes and doesn't like, and it doesn't have any, it shouldn't like this. It doesn't have any of that going on. If it's permissible and I can get away with it, I'll try it that day. If I can't, I won't. It's so simple. But it's not like, I'm confused about what I like. No, there's no confusion whatsoever. And no confusion what I don't like. So when people say, Paul, come to this meeting, I want you to see this. I don't want to go there. It's obvious. Why? Why do I want to do that? Well, it's obvious.